Hi everyone, and welcome to this algebraic fractions lesson where we will look at adding and subtracting of algebraic fractions. Now, something to remember, when we add or subtract fractions, we must get the LCM, the lowest common multiple of the denominators, okay? But when the numerators and denominators have more than one term, factorize them first and then find the lowest common multiple. Now that is very important. Just like when we did the multiplication and the division, if there's more than one term in my numerator and denominators, we want to factorize them, because we can only find the lowest common multiple when the denominators are all factorized into one term each. So we cannot get a lowest common multiple if the denominators are more than one term, okay? So how to find the lowest common multiple of the denominators? And here is a couple of examples, and I will quickly show you because it's something that we tend to forget. Now, finding the LCM of numbers, that's the lowest common multiple. So that is a number that is either equal to one of the biggest ones here or bigger than them, into which all of these numbers can divide into. Okay, so the lowest common multiple of 6, 3, and 4 will be 12. So the lowest common multiple here is 12. So I write it down, and then you will see later what we will do is we will just say that it's equal to, we'll open up a long line and we'll write down the lowest common multiple below the line. Okay, and I'll show you in the rest of the video what we do from here. Now, how about if we get letters and brackets? Now, the rule here is quite simple. We start from the left and we read to the right, just like we do in normal English. So I will always include everything I see until I get to something that's already included. So let me see. So we're going to write down the lowest common multiple of these x's and brackets. So we start with x minus 1 is the first denominator. So I already factorized everything for you. So you can see this is one term, one term, one term, and one term in the denominator. So I'm allowed to get the lowest common multiple. So now I start from left to right. I just include that bracket here. So it will be an x minus 1. There we go. Now I go to the next one. Oh, there's an x. It's not there yet because an x is not the same as an x minus 1 in brackets, right? An x. So I include the x and I like to put it at the front. And then if I continue, whoa, there's an x squared. Now I'm not going to put in an x squared also. I have to put in just the x squared and not the x, because a lowest common multiple is the biggest of the two, right? It's an x to the power of 1 and an x to the power of 2. And two things cannot go into one, but one thing can go into two things. So the only thing I do here is I already have an x there, but I just include the biggest exponent of that x. Okay, so great, and which is a 2 in this sum, okay? And then let's go on. There's an x, well, I already have an x in there, and then x minus 1, it's already in there. X plus 1, it's not there yet, so I include the x plus 1, and that will be my LCM. So later I will just draw a long line and I'll write the LCM below. Okay, did you get that? So remember, the lowest common multiple, it's the biggest of a denominator that we can find. So x minus 1 is in there. X is in there because x can go into x to the power of 2. X to the power of 2 can go into x to the power of 2. There is already the x there. There is a x minus 1. And how about the x plus 1? It's not there yet, and now it is there. You see? So we just go from left to right. We include everything that's not in the LCM yet, and if we get to something that's already there, we just include the biggest one of them that we can find. Okay, great. So how about a combination of numbers, letters, and brackets? Okay, in this case we want to find the LCM of the denominators. They are already one term, one term, one term, so I'm allowed to get the LCM. And here we start with the numbers. There's a 4, 6, and a 3, so it will be a 12. And then we keep reading from left to right. There's a x minus 1, so I have to include a x minus 1. And then we continue. There's a x. I can include the x, yes, and I'll show you later what we will do. And then there's an x to the power of 2. So am I going to include it on its own? No, because there's already a x, but this is a x to the power of 2. We always include the biggest ones, right? So that is x to the power of 2. So this will be an x to the power of 2. Now, let's just quickly go and then we rewrite this in a proper way because we're not used to 12 in brackets x minus 1 and then x to the power of 2, which will be the same as 12x to the power of 2 x minus 1. That is way better if we write it like this, so I can scratch that one out and this will be my lowest common multiple. So I hope you followed that part. Re-watch this part of this video so that you know exactly how to do this because it becomes very important. Okay, let's go try some examples. Now let's jump straight into this example, but I do want to tell you that adding and subtracting of algebraic fractions, there is a bit of work to do. So just stay calm and do everything slowly and you will see you'll end up doing it easily. So again, we always start with our math recipe. How many terms are there? Well, you can see 1, 2 terms. How do we solve terms with BODMAS? Are there any brackets? No. Any powers and roots I can do in this one? No. Any division? Well, it's a division sum, but I cannot divide because it's 1 term over 2 terms, so I have to factorize first. So let's just start off by doing that. So it will be a 5 over, and how do we factorize x plus 1? There's only one thing we can do is take out a common factor 1, right? Okay, great. And then we have to go and we have to go through BODMAS for the second term. Now, we stopped there at division, right? Okay, and then we factorized because we couldn't divide yet because it was 1 term over 2 terms. Now it's 1 term over 1 term. So hang on. Let's go to this one. Any brackets? No. Powers and roots? No. Any division? Well, it's a division sum there because division comes before minus, right? Okay, great. So now, can I divide? No. 2 terms, 2 terms. So I have to factorize those first. So leave the minus and then we factorize. Well, the x minus 1 will stay a x minus 1. I just take out a common factor 1. And here at the bottom, it will be x squared plus 1. And I also take out a common factor 1. Because please, that is not the difference between two squares because there's a plus. Okay, so I'm almost done now. So factorize the numerators and denominators if we need to. We did that, and then there's no multiplication there, no multiplication there. Then there's just adding and subtracting. This is subtracting of two fractions. So if we subtract fractions, find the LCM of the denominators. Okay, great. So subtracting of fractions, I have to find the LCM. We start from left to right with the denominators and we include everything that's different. So x plus 1, I have to include x plus 1 because it's the first one. There we go. And then there's a x squared plus 1. Is it already there? No, so I have to include that whole one as well. So x squared plus 1. Okay, great. Then I draw a line and I include my LCM as the new denominator. Okay, there we go. And if you read here, write the LCM as the new denominator. That's what I did. Divide the LCM with the original denominators of the fractions and multiply with their numerator. So what that basically means is we take the LCM, we divide by that denominator, and then that answer we will multiply with the numerator. So okay, x plus 1, x squared plus 1 divided by x plus 1. So the x plus 1 and x plus 1 will cancel. And then we have x squared plus 1 times 5 left, right? So I'll write the 5 at the front and then it will be x squared plus 1. Okay, write the minus because now we need to do exactly the same for this side. Divide the LCM with the original denominator that we factorized and then multiply with the numerator. So that answer we multiply. So x plus 1, x squared plus 1 divided by x squared plus 1, the x squared plus 1, and that one will cancel out, right? Because we're dividing. So then we have x plus 1 left times x minus 1. So let's write that. So it will be x plus 1 times x minus 1. Okay, great. So far, so good. Now, after doing that, we want to simplify, keep simplifying, but we won't simplify the denominator, the LCM. We leave the LCM. We will simplify here at the top because I still have to multiply that answer with the original numerator, right? So let's just multiply everything in the numerator here. So this will be a distributive law. So I end up with 5x squared plus 5. And then we have still the minus, because this here is now a product of two binomials. And when we have two brackets, when we multiply them and they're exactly the same, but only their signs differ, see, there's a plus, there's a minus, we can do that quick multiplication. Do you remember that from the product of two binomial lesson? I hope so. So we can just simply say x times x and plus 1 times minus 1. Keep it in brackets because there's still a minus for a distributive law. And you remember, product of two binomials comes before the distributive law. So this becomes a x squared. A plus 1 times a minus 1 becomes a minus 1. There we go. And we leave the LCM as the denominator. We don't change it. And there we go. Then we continue here. That becomes basically 5x squared plus 5, distributive law. So just keep your head on you because there's a lot of things you need to do. And a minus times a x squared is a minus x squared. Minus times a minus 1 is a plus 1. And then we still have the same denominator, x plus 1, x squared plus 1. There we go. And let's simplify here because now I have 5x squared, another like term which is minus x squared, which leaves me with 4x squared, and a plus 5 which is here. The plus 5 and plus 1 gives me a plus 6, and we leave the denominator as the LCM. There we go, x squared plus 1. Now, after we simplify, there's no more simplification because 4x squared cannot plus 6. We try and factorize again. So let's see. I can take out a common factor 2 here. So when I take out a 2, what is left? A 2x squared plus 3. And at the bottom, we still have our LCM x plus 1, x squared plus 1, and I am done. Sometimes when you finish factorizing this, you'll see now that there will be a bracket that's the same as 1 at the bottom, and we are allowed to cancel because the only thing that's left was a division sum. But in this case, no, so we are done. Let's go and try another example. Now I'll go quickly through these two examples so you can rewatch the video. There's the steps and you'll see how I talk and refer to them as I go along. Now here, how many terms are there? Well, there's only 2 terms. There we go. Now BOTMAS for this one. Any brackets, powers and roots that I can do? No, none at all. Division? Yes, but I cannot divide because there's 2 terms in my denominator I need to factorize. So the only factorization I can do there is by taking out a common factor 1. So that means just put it in brackets. No brackets, powers and roots in that term, and then I get to division. Can I divide? No. More than one term, I need to do what? I need to factorize. So again, a plus 1, take out a common factor 1 because there's no other factorization, and this becomes 3 minus a, and 3 plus a because this one is a difference between 2 squares. Now, we have to find the LCM because the only thing that's left, there's no multiplication here in this entire 2 terms, and then there's adding of 2 fractions. When we add fractions, I need to get the LCM. So we start here on the left, the a minus 3, so I have to include the a minus 3. Then if I go to this one, there's not a 3 minus a yet, but I don't want to include a bracket that can maybe already be there. I don't want 2 of the same things. And as far as I know, I can make that bracket the same as that one by taking out a minus. And we're allowed to do that. So we put a minus at the front. This becomes a minus 3 and a plus a. You remember this, right? Okay, the sign changes. Now this is exactly the same as the one we included, so I'm not going to include this one again. That I cannot make it the same as that one, even if I tried, and therefore I have to include that bracket as well. So I'm going to include the 3 plus a. Okay, great. That's my LCM. So now I draw a long line, usually as long as my sum is. You'll see that it's very necessary. and then we include the LCM at the bottom, 3 plus a. Okay, wonderful. Now just remember, if we go through this, there's a minus at the front and a plus, so those two, a plus and a minus, cannot go together, so it will actually, those two will change to a minus, and you'll see that in a second. So now again, we have to take this LCM divided by that denominator. So a minus 3 plus a divided by a minus 3 is just a 3 plus a. So I have to multiply it with the 2a. So that is what it becomes. Okay, great. Now that's a plus and a minus. It will become a minus. Okay, so the plus and the minus gives me a minus. And then if I take this and I divide it by those two brackets, I get exactly a 1. And a 1 times that a plus 1 will just be a 1 times a plus 1. Okay, great. Then continue to simplify the numerator. Now let me just slow down a little bit, because this step is quite important. Write the LCM as the new denominator. I did that. Divide the LCM with the original denominators of the fractions and multiply with their numerators. That's what I did to get that. Now to show you, I take this and I divide with that, and that answer I multiply with that, and that's how I ended up with that. Okay, because a minus 3 plus a divided by a minus 3 is just a 3 plus a. There it is. And then I multiplied with that, but I don't want to just do it out of my head, so I write the multiplication sum down first, and I do exactly the same this way around. Okay, divide with the denominator, multiply with that. Now the same thing divided by the same thing is a 1, and 1 times that is that as a multiplication sum, right? And I already did the plus and the minus to become the minus. So now here we go. I just quickly take this as a distributive law, so that becomes 6a plus 2a squared, and then distributive law here becomes a minus 1a and a minus 1, and we still have the same denominator, which is the LCM, and there we go. And let's add and subtract like terms with like terms. So 6a and minus 1a, so that gives me 5a plus 2a squared minus 1 at the top, and at the bottom we've got a minus 3 plus a. Now we can rewrite that so that it looks a bit better, which will be 2a squared plus 5a minus 1 over a minus 3 and 3 plus a. Now usually we can check to see if we can factorize that, but there's no trinomial that we can do for that top part. Okay, and I'm not going to even try it. I know it's not. You can try and see if you can work it out, but you can't. Okay, so we are basically done. Awesome. Okay. Now let's quickly run through this example. How many terms are there? There's 2 terms. So again, any brackets, powers and roots I can do here? No. Brackets, powers and roots there? No. There's a division, but can we divide? No, because there's more than one term in my numerator. I'm going to have to factorize that trinomial. And if I do that according to the trinomial box that I taught you, you will see that it ends up being a minus 4, a plus 1. And then we have a minus there, which we just bring down because we're going to factorize that one. We're not subtracting yet, right? So let's factorize this. It's a common factor 1, and 4 minus a, that's also just a common factor 1, which means just put them in brackets because there's no other factorization we can do. Now, multiplication that's left, or division I can do here? No, because we can't cross cancel anything. Please don't cross cancel those two because it's a minus, not a multiplication of fractions. So when we subtract fractions, I have to get the LCM. So I write here LCM, and then we start from the left. There's a minus 4, so I have to include a minus 4. Then we go to the next one. There's a plus 1, which is not there yet, so I include the a plus 1. Okay, so let's include it. And then we go to the next one, 4 minus a. Well, that one is different from those two, but I can make that one the same. So I don't want to include something I can make the same as that one, right? So I'm going to take out a minus. So this is a minus. Then the plus 4 becomes a minus 4. So let's put the minus in. And the minus a becomes a plus a because there's 3 sign changes, right? Okay, be careful now. Later there's a minus and a minus, which will make that become a plus. Okay, so what we do now is we draw a long line and we include the LCM at the bottom. So a minus 4, a plus 1, and now we start to divide. We take this divided by that, which is the same thing divided by the same thing is 1. 1 times 3 will just be the 3. Then the minus and the minus gives me a plus. So I'll write there the plus in blue. And then this divided by that. So the a minus 4 and minus 4 plus a is the same thing. So those two will cancel. Then we've got a plus 1 and a plus 1. So this a plus 1 times a plus 1. Okay, wonderful so far. And now we just simplify at the top. So here we go. So this will become a 3 plus. And remember, pluses don't change any sign. So I'm not going to put the answer of that product of two binomials in brackets. I'll just go first with first. So that is a squared. And then first with second. That is plus 1a. And then second with first, that's plus 1a. And second with second, 1 times 1 is a plus 1. And then at the bottom, we still have a minus 4, a plus 1. And let's continue to simplify that part at the top in the numerator. So again, like terms with like terms. So 3 plus 1 is a plus 4. Okay, there we go. And a squared, so stays a plus a squared, and 1a plus 1a is 2a, so plus 2a. And at the bottom we still have a minus 4 and a plus 1. Okay, let's just rewrite that a little bit better. So I'm just going to write here equal to a squared plus 2a plus 4 divided by a minus 4, a plus 1. I always write it in terms of its highest degree, these variables, so it looks much better. And then you will see you won't be able to factorize that one, and that will be our final answer. We are done. Great. So let's go try the last couple of examples. Now here is an example for you to try. You know how it works. Try it at home. Once you're ready, resume the video and see if you are correct. Here's just a reminder. If sign differences are the only things that are different between brackets, we can change the signs by taking out a minus sign. We've been doing it throughout the lesson, so you won't have a problem here. Okay, here I go. So, two terms, no brackets, powers and roots there. There's division, but I can, because more than one term in my denominator, I'm going to have to factorize. Okay, great. So take out a common factor 1. There it is. And in the next one, no brackets, powers and roots there. I'm supposed to divide, but I can't. Two terms, I'm supposed to factorize. Don't forget about the minus. Common factor 2 here, so it's a minus 12 in the numerator, and at the denominator there is also a common factor a, so it becomes a minus 4. Okay, wonderful. Now, there's no multiplication or anything else because it's the subtraction of fractions, and when we subtract fractions, we need to get the LCM. So I start here on the left, I include the 4 minus a, and then I work my way here. There's a, so include the a in the LCM. And that one, I'm not going to include it because I can make it the same as that because it's only the sign differences. So I take out a minus, so that will become a minus, that's a plus. And then I don't have to include it because I don't want to include extra brackets if I can make them the same. So now I draw my division line and I include my LCM below the line. So a 4 minus a. And then I divide with that. And I multiply with that. So a 4 minus a divided by 4 minus a is just a. A times a is a squared. And then here the signs, a minus and a minus will just turn into a plus. and then we do the same here. We divide there and we multiply there. Okay, so again, a4 minus a divided by a minus a plus 4, which is exactly the same two things. So it's a 1, and 1 times that stays that, right? So it will be 2a minus 12. And then we keep simplifying the numerator, which will be a squared plus 2a minus 24, because that's a distributive law. And below the line, we still have the denominator, which is a4 minus a, which is our LCM. Great. And here I can do the trinomial factorization because there's a trinomial there. So let's see if we can. And do you remember how to do it? We open up a box like this. We write here a squared and here 24. The factors of a squared is a and a. 24 and 1, 12 and 2, 6 and 4, 8 and 3, and then we draw a line like this. And what do we need to get? We need to get a plus 2a. So let's write that, plus 2a. And then if I can quickly go, a times 6 is 6a, and a times 4 is a 4a. Okay, now what signs must they have to give me a plus 2a? It must be a plus 6 and a minus 4. So let's carry over that plus 2 in front of the 6, and we carry over this minus 2 in front of the 4, right? Okay, there it is. Then put those two in brackets and those two in brackets. And at the top we've got a plus 6 and we've got a minus 4, and we still have the LCM at the bottom, 4 minus a. There we go. Now this is a division sum. Anything that's the same that we can cancel? Well, almost, because those two only have sign differences. So again, let's just take out a minus. So that's a minus, that's a minus, that's a plus. Now they're the same. We cancel those two, and my answer will be a plus 6 divided by minus a, and I am done. Great, work through these lessons with multiplication and division and adding and subtracting of algebraic fractions. They are very important. They're not that difficult. You just have to keep on thinking and practice them. Great, hope to see you soon. Bye. This is your host Richard T, and thank you for joining us. Please visit our website mathsa.co.za for free guided exam tutorials.